Y'all know about those. Thanks again for tuning in to yet another video. Infamous coming at you live from the West Coast yet again, San Jose, California. So we have the TCMT FXRT fairing installed. We now have about I'd say 35 miles with it. So this is just my first impressions so far with the fairing. What do I think about it? You know, this thing's completely different, way different from the Dominator. Everything about the fairing, completely different. The way it mounts, the shape, the size of it, everything. This is completely different. I think for the most part, the RWD, TCMT, and JD Customs, I think all of those are pretty much identical. All right. The Dominator is a completely different mold, cast. Everything about the Dominator is completely different from these ones. Like I said, I believe TCMT, maybe Villain to Hero. No, I don't think so. TCMT, for sure. JD Customs, I'm almost like 90% sure. The RWD, I'm pretty certain that's very close to this one. I think the Clockworks and the Dominator are, I don't know about the Clockworks. It could be, it's 50-50. I'm not entirely sure, but like I said, everything, the way it mounts, you can even see that I had to cut out the windshield, the headlight cover. I had to cut it out because the LP6 doesn't fit. The LP6, where the headlight, it's shallow. It's not as deep as the Dominator. RWD, they do sell that cover with the cutout. I've been always wondering, when people have this LP6, I've been wondering why don't they have the cover for it, and it's because it doesn't fit. So if you have an RWD, or you have any of those that I mentioned, you will, and if you want a LP6, you're going to have to either cut your headlight cover, or you would have to buy the RWD headlight cover, and it's $110, and it comes in black, so it looks a lot better. You got to have the headlight cover on this LP6. It just doesn't look nice. All right, like I said, Dominator, it is it's more shallow. So you're able to fit the LP6 with the headlight cover behind it, of course, but you don't get the ventilation. So let's stop comparing it to the Dominator, and let's get into, of course, the first impressions of the fairing. How's it handling? You know, vibration, stuff like that. Let's start with the negatives, of course. You know, the negatives is, I don't know. I mean, this is just because I had the Dominator for about 2 years, or a little bit over 2 years. I'm just not digging the way it mounts. You guys can see it sits about 3 inches higher than my Dominator. So the bottom of the fairing lines up with the bottom of my fuel tank. On the Dominator, like I said, it was 3 inches lower. That's one. All right. So my field of view, I could just barely see over the windshield. All right, just barely see over it. My point of view just sits slightly above the windshield, and I don't want to be looking through glass. That's, you know, I had that on my metric. I had an 18-inch windshield. I was never a huge fan of looking through glass. I want to be able to look over it. So I'm 5'7", in case you guys are wondering. So if you're 5'6", or if you have a small torso or a short torso, you'll be potentially looking through that windshield. Man, I just, here, let's go ahead and sit on the bike real quick, and maybe you guys can probably see how it kind of sits. So here, let's see if the camera's turned on. All right, so you guys can see this is me just kind of relaxed, and my point of view is just slightly above that tip of that the windshield. I'd say it's probably about like an inch or an inch and a half above the windshield. So like I said, it sits 3 inches higher than the Dominator. It also sits about 4 inches further out than the Dominator. That's another, like I said, that's just because I had the Dominator for 2 years, over 2 years. And this is just the, you know, seeing that gap. You guys can see the gap right there, right? From here to here, you know, that's a massive gap. The Dominator, it sits flush, it sits in tight, 3 inches higher, 4 inches out, and that really changes the way you know, the bike feels at high speeds. I've been noticing I've been getting a little bit more wind around my rib cage. It seems like I'm like right somewhere in between the pocket, and this was something that I didn't have with the Dominator. Now I don't know, it really depends. Like I said, people have been talking about, or not people, but I've seen a couple posts in the Facebook group, of course, where people were complaining about wind buffeting. I don't have that issue, luckily. I'm 5'7", I don't know, but Riding Dad, he was having that issue with his Dominator fairing, so maybe having this one will probably, I don't know, it'll probably resolve that issue. But like I said, having the fairing mounted higher and a little further out does feel different. Like I said, I could feel the wind passing around my rib cage. So I don't know. I mean, that's just stuff that I'm picking up on as I've been riding it. So as far as wind protection, buffeting, not an issue. Wind noise, not an issue. You know, it's fine. Like I said, I'm sitting right in the pocket. Maybe that's what that is, but I'm not digging the way it looks, the way it sits. I'm not a fan. Like I said, I've seen a lot of other people's FXRT builds, and that's I've always, you know, noticed that. But now that I've had hands-on experience with the bracket, and then if I've also installed it, I could definitely see the reasons why the fairing sits so much taller on the bike. So there's that. As far as the bracket, it's very beefy. It's a massive bracket, but you can see there's just a little bit of play on the fairing. It does move a little bit. All right, it's not solid. I've installed it fairly solid. I think what it is the bolt that I'm using is probably just not thick enough, because they do provide a bolt that's about 3/8 thick, but the issue is you know, just trying to get around that bolt and putting it in and taking it out, because of course I'm doing different things on the bike. So I went ahead and I used a smaller bolt of 5/16 to, you know, make it easier on me to be removing and taking this off as I need it to be. But I think that's probably the reason why this bracket moves quite a bit more than the Dominator. So here you guys can see I'm lifting it. There's a little bit of movement. There's no rattle. Surprisingly, there's no rattle. There's no noise to it. That is a benefit. The Dominator I was having a lot of that rattling, but of course I resolved it with some sound dampening mat around all the mounting area. So there's that. Any more negatives? I think the fairing, I thought it was pretty decent, you know, prepping it, but the mounting area was, for some reason, I mentioned it in the unboxing, it was bold, or it was bowed, or it was bold. So for some reason the mounting area was bold, meaning that it had a slight curve to it. When I went to crank down the LP6 bracket, man, that thing started cracking like crazy. There's massive cracks behind the LP6. You're not going to be able to see them because of course you have the LP6, but there's massive cracks, and I've already painted the fairing before I even started doing any of this. I kind of wish I had mounted the fairing first before painting it, because then that would have given me the opportunity to touch upon those cracks. But we have some massive cracks behind the headlight, and that's one of the things that I wish I probably had done before, you know, doing the fit and finish already. So, you know, as far as the build quality, and I'm just, like I said, I'm going off of the Dominator. A lot of this is off the Dominator. The fairing itself, it's not, how do you say, it's not efficient, or the quality's quite not there. I mean, we're talking about the thicknesses in certain areas are different. There's a lot of resin on this thing. It's heavy compared to the Dominator. The Dominator is very, the quality is, it's very high. It's thin material, it's light. The Dominator is a lighter bracket, and it's lighter on the fairing, so it's going to be a lot easier on your front end as well than having, of course, this beefy bracket that doesn't really, you know, mount that well. Because, like I said, it's a massive I mean, it moves a little bit, but what I'm saying is the bracket is massive, it's heavy, and it compared to the Dominator, once again, it's not as solid. All right, there's that. And then of course we have the, like I said, the fairing. There's parts of the fairing where it's like half an inch or maybe 3/8 of an inch thick, and then there's some parts where it's only like a 1/4 inch thick. It's not very consistent. The Dominator, all the way around the fairing, all the way around it, is consistently a 1/4 inch. So it is like the quality and how do you say it? The build quality, everything is beyond the TCMT. So there's that. But like I said, wind protection, buffeting, I haven't had any issues with it. You guys can see that I did cut out the windshield. I mean, I did that more for style, but you can see with my setup, I have 14 inches of rise with my bars. 14 inches. Now, it doesn't look like there probably would have been any issue clearance-wise, but you can't really see my turn signals. I've ordered some wires for the Genie here, so I could set up my little knockoff S2s down there for those to, you know, go off and on. But man, if you have anything, you know, lower than I'd say even 10 inches, you're really pushing it. Because this, I mean, we're talking about 14, right? So if your bars sit at 10 inches, you're very close to the fairing. So there's that. The other issue, of course, is the actual bracket. I think TCMT does not advertise this bracket as a Lowrider S bracket. It doesn't fit on a Lowrider S. It just doesn't. All right, I don't have full tilt on my front end because of the lower bracket. The lower bracket actually hits the triple tree, the fork brackets on the bottom. So it doesn't really fit. All right, it doesn't fit. You don't have full tilt on your front end with that bracket. But for some reason, on some of the other sites that I've been looking at it, because I've been looking into it, on other sites they do claim that this bracket does fit the Lowrider S. It just doesn't. You know, there has to be a lot of modification. I did some modification where I actually pushed the bracket back more. I had to, of course, widen the eyelets on the mounting area down here. I had to remove some material so I could push it all the way back. You guys can see this gap used to be about like maybe about a 1/4 inch. This used to fit, you know, sit further out here. I don't know if the camera's going to be picking it up, but this used to fit. I used to be able to fit my finger in there, so I had to move that, of course, and then of course I had to cut out the bottom bracket. I had to cut out the bottom bracket. Down here you guys can see, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but you used to have, there was 2 mounting areas right here. There's 2 mounts. I had to cut that out too because of the triple tree. That was banging up against the triple tree. So you can see, you hear that? And I don't have full tilt of my front end because of that. So you can see that it bangs up against that lower bracket. It doesn't fit the Lowrider S. I had to trim the whole bottom of the fairing. I had to cut out about 3/4 of an inch on both sides. That's another thing. The Dominator, it sat in there perfect. And like I said, it's completely different. The Dominator is completely different, but you need to cut out about 3/4 of an inch on both sides on the bottom of the fairing. And you can see that I'm barely clearing. Here, let's look at this side. Look at that side right there, guys. Here, let's see if the camera picks it up. All right, you can see the spacing right there. We're talking about like 1/8 of an inch between the forks and the bottom fairing. So this does not fit. I mean, you could make it fit after about let's say after about a couple hours of fabricating and trimming and grinding and, you know, doing a lot of that stuff. You know, that's just stuff that I had to do. It doesn't fit. It doesn't really bolt onto a Lowrider S. Those are the only issues. You know, it's just the way it sits, the fitment. Like I said, this is not for a Lowrider S, but some sites they do have it advertised to fit, to bolt up onto a Lowrider S, but it doesn't really. I made it fit. all right, with a ton of work. So the benefits I would say is the price. All right, we're talking about $1,000. I also have the lowers. I haven't gotten around to getting those on, but the price is one of the benefits. All right, once you get around all the prep work, of course my fairing was broken. That did take a significant more time to fix. You guys can see, if you guys seen the video, this was broken. This whole area was busted. It will take some time. That really depends. It's hard to kind of pinpoint. Maybe this was a one-off thing with me. I've seen FX DLS Brooklyn having that issue with his RWD. Like I said, I've cited different creators. There was also I think Be More Bread. He also had an issue with his fairing, and his was JD Customs. For the most part, you know, it's a hit or miss as far as the damage and stuff like that. It can happen to anybody. My Dominator had some damage on it too. It wasn't as significant as badly as this one, but the prep work was definitely more on my Dominator than it was on this one, as far as, you know, the damage. Like I said, the positives. What was I? The price is a positive. You know, as far as the you know, the benefits of having a full mounted frame mounted fairing is, you know, those are the positive as well. You have great wind protection. You have great wind noise. Like I said, I don't have wind buffeting. That's going to depend between riders. All right, your size and your helmet. You know, that's a massive one. Is the helmet. The smaller the helmet, the better the buffeting. The larger the helmet, like I said, it depends on every rider. I can't really tell you guys, but for me, at 5'7", with about any helmet that I have, I don't have any wind buffeting. So those are the benefits, price, and the improvements of having the fixed fairing, frame mounted fairing. You know, other than that, man, you know, it's very tough recommending this fairing, especially if you have a lowrider S. I would say just go with the Dominator. Pay the extra amount of money. You don't have to. And we're only talking about, what is it, like an extra $500, $600 or so. I think spending the extra $600, man, I believe it's worth it. Because like I said, you don't have to trim it. You don't have to fit it. The Dominator bracket fits on the lowrider S. You don't have to, you know, worry about the full tilt, except for there was some issues with my Dominator. Hopefully they fixed them by now. I did have to, of course, modify the bottom bracket. You guys are gonna have to see those videos, but the angle of this bracket was off about half an inch or so. There were some issues. I'm not gonna lie. The fitment was also man, I know the word. Problematic. Is that the right word? That doesn't sound right. But of course, like I said, there was some fitment issues, but it wasn't as bad as it was with the TCMT. All right, that's given. So you guys can let me know in the comments if you guys have the FXRT fairing or another brand. You guys can let me know in the comments. What are you guys rocking, or do you have these similar issues? Like I said, Be More Bread. He also has the JD Customs. He has the JD Customs, and he has a little bit of a movement issue. I really believe they're very similar as far as the way they fit, because most of them they sit like this. But I think the Dominator, just for the extra, like I said, the extra $600, I really like the way it sits and it's tucked in. I don't know. You guys could let me know in the comments. Oh, another benefit, of course, was the 6.5 speakers. You guys can see I was able to fit 6.5 speakers on this fairing. All right. For some reason, the Dominator is just slightly shorter, narrow, and they also have this like little lip on the outside that doesn't really let you fit anything bigger than 5 1/4. I mean, you could probably do 6.5, but you would have to move the entire speaker inside of the fairing, and then you'll have this lip hanging out. I have a little bit of a lip, you guys can see, tiny. We're talking about maybe 1/8 of an inch that's hanging out on the inside of the fairing. It's very minor, but you know, you really can't, I mean, see it. The you know, you can, there's a little bit of an overhang here, a little bit of overhang on the other side too. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up. Here, let's go ahead and move on this side. The bike's filthy, guys. So you guys can see it's just a little bit of an overhang, 6.5. They do fit. So I mean, there's that. I guess that would be a benefit. You're able to fit larger speakers. But you know, after trying these speakers out, I'm not really impressed with this speaker setup. I don't know. I mean, these speakers are $60, but I'll just have to make another video on the audio system. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the first impressions of the TCMT FXRT fairing. You guys can see the amount it shakes. I mean, the whole bike shakes. It's a Harley-Davidson. But you can see there's a little bit of movement. Like I said, there isn't. I guess the other benefit would be minimal rattle. I am getting some squeaking, but I believe it's from the saddlebags, because I just installed those today and they started squeaking and stuff like that. But I think I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep this fairing for at least a year. We'll see how it turns out. You guys are gonna have to, you know, tune back in for the follow-up review. But you know, as far as the everything, it's all right. You know, you're gonna need some work. You're gonna have to put in some work. If you're paying somebody else to do the prep work and all that other stuff, they're gonna charge you the same. All right. If it's a Dominator fairing, they're gonna charge you about $800, maybe, depending on where you go. We're talking about paint, prep, and whatever. I mean, it varies between person to person, all right? Especially location. But you know, if I'm prepping your fairing, I'm gonna bill you the same. If it's a TCMT, a JD Customs, or a Dominator, or whatever, it's gonna cost the same unless there is significant damage. All right. If this fairing came in with the damage that I got it in, there's gonna be an increased charge. Definitely. All right. We're talking potentially an extra $400. So if you're paying $400 additional to get it repaired, why not spend those $400 on the Dominator fairing? I'm just saying, hey, because like I said, it really depends on person to person. I did not have a massive damage like I did with the Dominator, but I mean, it varies. I did have some damage on the Dominator, but it was very minimal. It was very minor stuff. All right, I had damage around the speaker area. I had damage towards the bottom. Of course, there was damage, but it wasn't as bad as it was on this TCMT. So enough rambling. I don't know. I feel like I've left stuff out. I don't know. I don't know what else I left out. I think that's pretty much it. So $1,000 wasted? I don't think they're wasted. You know, I was able to change it up. I was able to see what TCMT had to offer. You know, I think I like the way it looks, but I do prefer the Dominator the way it sits. There's things of the Dominator that I do prefer. As far as all the other, you know, competitors, I'm pretty certain they're all pretty much the same. So life's a risk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching the whole video. Please leave a like on the video, guys. Much appreciated. Get out there and ride. Later.